Hello everyone, this is Bob, and in this rental housing market update, I'll be going over all of the following issues that could affect the tenant's ability to pay rent, and by how much your individual state might be affected, because each state is being affected in a different way in different proportion. And so in order to help you gauge your own rental market and how you might be affected as a tenant or as an owner, I'll be going over a few main factors. This includes the HEALS Act, what it does and how it differs from previous acts, and when and if it will get signed, changing tenant mentality towards paying rent and landlord's ability to actually enforce those rents, the tenant's financial health and affordability, and finally, local market openings and unemployment. And as I go into this, what you might find surprising is it isn't just partly can the tenants financially make their payments, which is not the surprising part. The surprising part, but a now equally important human part of this, is people's mentality towards actually paying the rent itself, which is sort of a new issue. Okay, so first up is the HEALS Act. It's a lot like the CARES Act and how it works and everything, but I'm going to go over the few main differences that will most likely affect you. The first one is actually the size of the bill. This one is only $1 trillion, whereas like the CARES Act was like $3 trillion. You will still get the $1,200 check up front plus $500 per dependent, but college students, you're actually going to be able to qualify for the extra $500 if you are still claimed as a dependent, along with a whole slew of extra people as well. Now, with that said, the $600 weekly unemployment checks will be at least smaller. They'll probably be closer between $200 and $500, and it will actually be affected by how much you make. I'm sure the people getting paid under the table right now are smiling pretty big. But hey, you could get a $450 rehire bonus, which is new, and this is definitely being added to help ensure that people actually remain incentivized to actually get a job. Another $190 billion will be poured into the PPP loans, and each time they say it's going to focus on the smaller businesses and not go to the mega funds anymore, but we will see. And this bill actually includes education reopenings to basically get the kids back to school, which I think in turn helps bring the parents back to work. And this is also the first bill to actually address funding coronavirus checks, in which case this one is $16 billion. So yes, from a purely financial standpoint, the HEALS bill is a great idea for helping tenants actually be able to pay the bills through subsidies. And it does help with keeping the businesses open with the PPP loans, and by reopening the schools, okay, yes, maybe more parents will be able to actually go out there and get a job, and they'll remain somewhat incentivized to get a job through a rehire bonus. I'm sure there will be way more details on how that actually gets rolled out, because this isn't signed yet. Congress, as always, is fighting back and forth all the way up to the last moment, and we'll see if this gets delayed or not. But real answers on that and when it actually gets rolled out, I can't answer it, no one else can, but what I can say is tenants will be watching this and they'll be waiting for their checks, and if they know, or at least aren't sure if they're going to be getting another check, well then more of them are more likely to take their check and put it in their pocket and will be more wary of paying the rent, especially if they are not in necessarily good financial condition. And the places that might have the most people reluctant to pay rent are probably in the places that were collecting the most unemployment benefits. Like on this map, which is basically the Minecraft version of America. And I've added this link below in the description. And as you can see, the states with the darker red have collected way more unemployment insurance. Like the higher ones are like Nevada, showing as high as 33.1% of the labor force has been collecting unemployment benefits. But in states like mine, Arizona, it's not necessarily as strong. So the effects of the unemployment checks coming in probably won't be felt as strongly in my state. But if you're in Nevada, California, DC, Georgia, Louisiana, New York, a little bit Washington, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, you're probably going to be feeling this a whole lot more. And this harsh truth of more and more people living paycheck to paycheck, and those paychecks are really stimulus checks, is being coupled with the new sort of social movement of no job, no rent. which is sort of a new problem. I mean, for the most part, it was like paying your mortgage. Everyone does it. No one's going to fight against actually paying the mortgage. Well, now, then they did in '08 because they couldn't. And now the issue is, well, are they actually going to want to pay the rent? The places where I've seen this grow, like in the streets and be protest the most, I mean, it's hard to gauge, but as someone who's always reading the papers, I know, grain of salt, it mostly seems to come up in Los Angeles, California, Portland, Oregon, Denver, Colorado, Seattle, Washington, Washington, D.C., and New York City. So if you're in states like that, you are more likely to have issues with it. But luckily, in a state like mine, Arizona, we are far more caught up in not wearing a mask, but we will definitely pay the rent. So I guess take the good with the not wearing a mask. Oh, I'm throwing masks in the air like I just don't care. I think that's the lamest thing I've ever done. It really isn't. Subscribe. But even if you are in a state where these protests have not been particularly strong, the states themselves actually are trying to find ways to help the tenants. Like in Arizona, they actually did push back the date to where we would actually be able to evict tenants. It went from we were going to be able to start doing it in August, now it's been extended all the way to October 31st. Also in Denver, Colorado, the governor added an additional $3 million for like emergency funding for anyone who couldn't pay their rent. So a lot of states are starting to do their own sort of idea to help people pay the rent. And I would not be surprised if at some point the feds step in and start having an idea like this for the rent for once, which at least financially would be great for landlords and tenants specifically. But in the meantime, where landlords really do have to wonder, will this tenant pay me rent? Because their ability to evict them, their leverage to actually go, hey, pay me the rent, is really being taken away from them right now. The best thing to do is actually have a relationship with that tenant and try to actually work out a program with them. And I go into this in way more depth in this video because we actually took this method that I talk about and we applied it to our own property management company, and we are doing much better than the norm. We're still collecting well over 95% of total rents. And the people who really are having issues, we have them on payment plans, so at least we're having money coming in and we're making it work. But what condition is the average tenant actually in? Well, the savings rate at least has jumped from 7% on average all the way up to 32%, which is actually really impressive. Like, I'm actually super glad that everyone has pretty much started rallying around saving because of the times being way more crazy. So what they do have saved will hopefully be able to push them a little bit further until either the market completely just reopens or at least these stimulus checks, which I think are going to get a little bit delayed. They should be able to weather that gap. And one thing that has made it more possible for the savings rate to go up, and maybe this isn't the most popular objective fact, but it is a fact and I need to note it to everyone, which is the people who are obviously getting hit the most in this as the largest group are the people who have jobs that pay lower wages, right? Well, because of this $600 unemployment check that came in every week, and then on top of that, you would get your state unemployment, plus the $1,200, plus the dependents, plus this and that. People actually were making notably more than what they were at their regular jobs, or at least were very, very close to it. And as you can imagine, and it takes very little imagination on this, that really did help with rent collection. And one additional thing that I do want to note on that savings rate, a lot of that savings rate jump actually is coming from wealthier Americans who spend way more of their money on discretionary income, namely services, and a little bit products, which is the main thing that keeps the American economy going. It's consumer discretionary spending, especially services. And the people who are spending the most are, yes, one, wealthier, and two, are usually older, who are more susceptible to things that we're going through. So it's a double whammy because they are the least likely to go out and spend, especially on a service where they have to go and usually meet another person or five. But how much is the savings accounts that have been growing across the board actually going to be able to help in your state? Well, it's not going to be the same for every single state because, as we all know, different places cost different amounts of money to live in. Like, for example, to live in Phoenix, Arizona, the average apartment, like if you average the 1 and 2 bedrooms, costs $1,291. And if you're in like Los Angeles, California, it's nearly double at 2,401. And then it goes even higher in New York where it's 3,392. That's almost triple Phoenix. So this $600 extra is just, it doesn't go as far if you're in a more expensive place. So yes, the stimulus bill or not, I think you can see the problem here, at least from a financial perspective. The numbers just don't add up in the long term because savings accounts can't last forever. If you keep tapping into them, there's not going to be a savings account anymore. Hence, why the huge push for the market reopen, which has been going, it's been going, and unemployment rates have steadily dropped. But when you reopen the market, there's going to be the virus spiking in certain areas, and then you got to partially close it down. And then you reopen it, you try again, and then everyone from the hospitals to the businesses to just the people walking around town get a little bit smarter each time as they adapt to this situation, and the market should incrementally and marginally go up every time we keep on pushing this forward. And this process is just going to keep on going until we get a credible vaccine and treatments that really can handle this somewhat evolving virus. So from perspective of the market and our ability to collect these rents, we're just going to keep on treading water month to month, seeing what we're able to do. But one thing that really does need to get noted here is that there is forward momentum on the vaccine. Like, we've just started trials with people to test vaccines, and I know that remdesivir's made by Gilead has actually been proven effective in treating COVID-19, especially with people who are in like the actual like emergency rooms. They really need help. So that is at least cutting down the fear, the mortality rate, how long you're having to be in the hospital, which reduces your costs and also makes it to where you can treat more people in the hospital because less people are in there for a shorter period of time. So it makes sense that the market will continue to creep up as an effect of these things. And another thing to remember from, at least in my world, the real estate perspective, America really was and still is fundamentally quite sound. This was not like the 2008 where it all got tripped and it all fell apart because, yeah, we messed up. But this one, at least in real estate, I know that we are set up pretty decently. So at least we have a good foundation to help us keep on moving this forward. And I really do believe we will be able, as a group, to get through this. So it is only a matter of time until science catches up with this and we are finally able to move forward from all of this. So, all right, that is this month's market update. I hope this was helpful. Please click the like button for the YouTube algorithm. I would really appreciate it. And all right, guys, have a good one. Bye.